got a question for you. And think about this one before you answer it. Is the Heisman Trophy still Caleb Williams's? Pause for dramatic effect and for you to answer. Okay, great. I'm assuming you have your answer now. I want to unpack this a little bit because after the loss to Utah, his Heisman candidacy, I think, became a little bit less certain. Now, he's obviously a finalist. As finalists were just announced, you got Max Duggan from TCU. You have C.J. Stroud from Ohio State. You got Stetson Bennett from Georgia. Then, obviously, Caleb Williams makes the fourth finalist for the Heisman Trophy. And whether you like it or not, the Heisman Trophy goes to the best player on one of the best teams. It's just kind of the way the award is right now. It's supposed to go to the most outstanding player in college football. I think you can make the case for all those guys. But the reason why I say that, the best player on the best team, 8 of the last 10 winners of this award have won their conference title. The only 2 that didn't of the last 10 were Johnny Manziel and Lamar Jackson. So with that being said, Caleb Williams, if he were to win it, would be the 3rd of the last 11, meaning you usually have to win the conference title to be able to bring home that little bronze trophy. Is it still his to win? Let's break it down a little bit. To give you my answer, I wholeheartedly believe Caleb Williams will still win the Heisman Trophy. Here's why. USC a season ago went 4-8, meaning this time last year, they were getting ready to do their exit interviews. They were just getting familiar with Coach Lincoln Riley, who had become their new coach at this point in time. And they were making plans to watch the college football playoff and to watch the national title game and to watch bowl season. Now, fast forward the tape, bring in Caleb Williams with other transfer portal players, and they competed for a Pac-12 championship. Came up short, like we already alluded to, but they competed in a game that they were watching a season ago. So you took lots of transfers, right? You took lots of transfers, but Caleb Williams is really the motor to that whole operation. Going back to this conversation around the most outstanding player in college football, sometimes I think you factor into that the most valuable and impactful player in college football to his team. And USC, like I said, tons of talent. They did a lot in the portal, but I think Caleb Williams is the butter to that whole recipe. Let me expand on that. If you were to make a dish, if you were to make something, let's just use this for an example. You're making pasta, you're making chicken Alfredo. That's great if you have a nice bowl. That's great if you have the best noodles. You have the best chicken. You have all the best ingredients. But guess what? You can't make any of that if you don't have butter. Just like USC. They had Jordan Addison. They had a phenomenal coach in Lincoln Riley. They got a lot of pieces through the portal. But guess what? If you don't have your generational quarterback, USC isn't playing in the Pac-12 title game. Look at the kind of games they won. They scored over 30 in just about every game but one. Meaning USC, more often than not, had to play a certain style to be able to win certain football games. And they got a lot better as a program. They busted some myths, I think, as the year went on with how they played defensively against Notre Dame and how they played against UCLA. But the reality is USC, more often than not, had to score 40 plus to win the football game. And the way that Lincoln Riley's offense is operated, they ask a lot of the quarterback. Caleb Williams doing a lot with his legs, doing a lot with his arm. Like, a lot of USC success as a team depended on the offense. A lot of the success on the offensive side, you guessed it, depends on Caleb Williams. So USC as a team got better, yes, but I don't believe they're playing for a Pac-12 title if Caleb Williams isn't your quarterback and produces the effort that he had to. And the other reason why I believe Caleb Williams is your Heisman Trophy winner is it's a November award, and Caleb Williams popped in November, had a total of 17 touchdowns, which is just ridiculous in the month, but nobody else took the award. Like, it was up during the month of November for a couple of guys to take home, and I don't think anybody really grabbed it. Now, some of that is due to injury, and that's none of these players' fault. Your heart breaks for them, and I don't know how much you should factor an injury to the Heisman Trophy. I believe wholeheartedly Hendon Hooker should be at least in New York for the Heisman, but he unfortunately got hurt, and that apparently disqualified him from winning the award. According to the Heisman Trophy voters, Blake Corum, more or less missed 3 games. Your heart breaks for him. He could have won the award at one point in time. Max Duggan on the field, I think, had a very real chance to win that award if he had been able to win the conference championship. I think that could have been the differentiating factor for him because he won the entire Hearts of America that Saturday with him bleeding from his elbow and tears in the press conference. Like, dude left it all out there. I'm a Max Duggan stan because of that game. But the reality is, didn't win the conference and didn't put up as good of numbers as Caleb Williams did. Same thing with C.J. Stroud. If he beats Michigan, they likely roll through the Big Ten championship game against Purdue, as Michigan did, and maybe he's your Heisman winner, but they lost to Michigan. He's not even playing on Conference Championship Saturday. So you see what I'm saying here? There was nobody that really grabbed the award. Stetson Bennett, I think there's just a stigmatism, quite frankly, around voters with how complete George is and how good players are around him. You kind of, for whatever reason, water down what Stetson Bennett brings to the table. Not here to talk about that. I'm glad he's invited. But the reality is nobody really just grabbed this award in November besides Caleb Williams, which kind of brings me to my conspiracy theory, and I can't prove this until we get some sort of data on it. I looked everywhere to see how many votes had been in before the conference title games, couldn't find it. My feeling is with the way that Caleb Williams played in November, like I said, 17 total touchdowns, 2 primetime games against UCLA and Notre Dame where he absolutely balled out. My feeling is he had a fair amount of voters submitting their ballot before that game against Utah even happened. Like, I would venture there was a fair percentage of of voters for that award that said, you know what, Caleb Williams has gone crazy. I've seen enough. I don't need to do any more research here, which unfortunately is a stance I think some Heisman voters take, and submitted their ballot. So all that's to say, a percentage of the award is probably already locked up before he even loses that game to Utah. Whether it's right or it's wrong, I wouldn't put my vote in just then, but that's the reality. So all that's to say, he makes USC a different team, makes them a vastly more competitive team with him coming to that roster. I don't know if you credit him for all 7 wins, but they're definitely not playing for a Pac-12 title without Caleb Williams. Nobody else really grabbed the award in November, and whether we like it or not, the Heisman Trophy, it is what it is. It's a November award, and he had a phenomenal November, and there was a lot of other people that had a chance to take it, and for one reason or another weren't able to or just didn't. And with that being said, I think a lot of the votes came in early, and I think a lot of them were on Caleb Williams. So we'll see what happens. We'll wait to see when they announce it, and you know, if he does end up lifting that little bronze statue and giving a speech. But for my money, I think Caleb Williams will win the Heisman Trophy. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.